Did you know that leadership communication is one of the most important factors of business success? And did you know that it has also been researched that about only a third of leaders feel that they're actually effective in their communication skills? And about 73% of leaders have actually admitted to struggling with communication to their teams about the organizational goals and even the vision and the tasks that they need to carry out. With this being such a prevalent issue in terms of effectively communicating as leaders, I think it is very important for us to unpack what is it about leaders that we can do in order to become effective in our communication. We unpack this and make sure that it is not a global issue, a global statistic across all organizations, but rather I'll be giving you keys on how you can become effective as a leader. Hi, my name is Rosaria Cedras and I am a communications and leadership specialist. I equip high-growth entrepreneurs and corporate executives on tools and strategies that they can use to become more impactful and more influential in their leadership. Welcome to the Communications Masterclass for every leader. So we know that in order for you to be a really amazing leader, you need to be a great communicator. And we also know that to have great communication skills, you actually need to have this skill practiced. Everybody needs to know exactly what it is that you as a leader want to communicate. And we also know that you as a leader need to communicate this so that your subordinates and your team can actually implement their tasks. Everybody knows what it is that they need to do at what time, and that you can actually give and receive feedback. The direct reports need to know their voice is being heard. They do not want to have a leader that doesn't believe in them or doesn't actually hear them. So I'm here to unlock the top 5 keys that you need in order to become an effective communicator as a leader. The first key that I'd like to unlock is that you need to actually be able to know why. So why is communication as a leader important? We've already mentioned that your subordinates or your team will know exactly what it is that is needed by when. They will also be able to have a two-way communication with you because their leader is open to receive feedback. They know exactly what is needed from them in terms of the job description. But one of my keys that I absolutely want to discuss with you as a leader and something that you need to unlock is transparency. Are you transparent as a leader in your communication? And I read a quote that actually said that trust happens when leaders are transparent. The only way that you can build trust as a leader is to be transparent. And what does transparency mean? When we're talking transparency as a leader, we're talking about you being transparent about job descriptions, about salary and pay. You being open and have an open door policy where employees can actually come into your office and they can put through their grievances and they know that they're being heard in a safe and secure environment. It is important to be transparent as a leader, and that is the first key to unlock your effective communications as a leader. Our second key in order for us to unlock our effectiveness as communicators, especially as leaders, is active listening. I know we're talking about communication skills, right? And you don't really think that maybe I need to listen. I need to pause and listen to someone genuinely. Well, what I can say is that great leaders have got great listening skills. And what do I mean by actively listening? This means not responding to people, just making sure that you're nodding, you're acknowledging someone genuinely and adequately. When we feel heard, we're able to have a secure and safe environment to put out our thoughts and our emotions. And active listening is all about seeking understanding. I love Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective people, where he discusses one of the habits being seek to understand instead of being understood. And the reason for that is that through active listening, you're actually seeking understanding. So my question to you is, as a leader, are you actively listening to your team? I hope you are. My third key that I would like to untap and unlock in my effective communication skills as a leader is empathy. So we know that empathy is actually a big word that's being thrown around. They say that empathy is actually the number one skill that you need as a leader in order to be a great leader. So what is empathy? I'll take you to a story about 10 years ago when I was in corporate as an intern. I saw a leader that was really not empathetic. She was not sympathetic to our feelings, to what it is that we needed, and she never put herself in our shoes. It was a time where she was so destructive as a leader. Just seeing her down the corridor or her walking would send shivers down our spine. So empathy is actually the art of seeing with another's eyes, hearing with another's ears, and feeling with another's heart. Empathy is all about you putting yourself into the shoes of another. Are you as a leader actually being empathetic? Some of the questions that you need to ask yourself on how you can practice your empathy as a leader is to make sure that 1, you know exactly how someone is feeling, 2, you put yourself in their shoes, and 3, what are their pain points and how can you as a leader alleviate those? So we'll take a short break and we'll go into our next keys of effective communication as leaders. Awesome. So we have just unlocked the 3 keys of our effective leadership communication. So we know already that we need to practice transparency as an organization, and even as leaders, we know that we need to have active listening skills in order for our employees to feel heard and also to feel secure, right? And the third key that we discussed before the break was empathy, the big one, the big E word that everybody is using within the leadership and organizational cultures. So empathy, we said, is actually you practicing how it feels to be in the other person's shoes. And we know that you need to also have a heart for others in order to become effective in your empathy. Some of those questions you ask yourself is, how would I feel if I was in that person's shoes? So on to our 4th key in order to unlock our top 5 keys for effective communication as leaders is positive body language. When we speak about positive body language, it's things such as great eye contact. I've got an amazing tip that you can use in order to maintain and always have great eye contact. Practice noticing the color of the eyes of everyone that you meet. That is a good way to maintain great eye contact. And not only that, when I speak about positive body language, it is all about leaving great first, second, and third impressions. Through positive body language, your team already knows what it is that you're going to do or before you even say it. They say that it's more in what you do than what you say that actually matters. So positive body language also helps you to build the trust and alignment that you need with your team. If you're open, if you're smiling, if you've got open and positive body language, your team finds it much easier to be able to communicate with you. You must always make sure that you've got an open door policy, but also open body language so that your team knows exactly what it is that they need from you and not to actually fear you in any kind of way. My 5th key in order to unlock your effective communication leadership is something that I know is not so great, not everybody loves it, but giving and receiving feedback. So who here who's actually watching us right now loves to receive negative feedback or negative feedback or comments? I'm sure it's not a lot of us. We do not like hearing about the negative feedback or something that is wrong about what we're doing. But giving and receiving feedback is a way that you as a leader could actually become effective. So what do I mean when I'm talking about giving and receiving feedback. It is all about you and your colleagues being able to give that positive feedback that you always need. Whether you're receiving feedback or giving it, make sure that you're on the receiving end and know that it's a secure and safe environment for you to be able to speak your mind constructively and also add value to someone's life. It's Rosaria here, and it's been great doing this keynote. Be sure to catch me for my mini masterclasses that I'm going to be having, where we unpack the subject matter even more. I hope you are becoming effective, influential, and impactful. Bye-bye for now.
We've put all the great High Noon live shows in one place for your convenience. Look out for HNL's greatest moments. Next, make a date to catch us live right here on LinkedIn. On Mondays, catch Sikim Kize with business, how-to and mentorship. On Tuesdays, Ursula Buerta with confidence and presence. Wednesdays, see Nikki Bush dancing with disruption, women empowerment and reinvention. On Thursdays, Nico Stain with storytelling, structure and presentation. And Fridays, Joni Petty presents sleep, resilience and bouncing forward. Watch High Noon live on LinkedIn. Weekdays at 12, South African Standard Time.
Hello and welcome to HybriCON. I am Zigim Keys, and you've just heard a wonderful masterclass from Rosaria on effective communication for every leader. Now, I really enjoyed listening to you, and I thought it was so insightful, and there's so many key points in there. But one thing that struck me was the stat that you mentioned in the beginning, that globally, not all leaders are actually good communicators. And I think we make that assumption, like, oh, you're in a leadership position, you should know how to communicate. So what is that all about? What is it about leaders not necessarily translating into being good communicators?
Exactly. I think it's such a prevalent point in CV that sometimes leaders get into that position and now you're managing a team. You're no longer working in a silo. So being able to be effective in your communication, you need to actually have those skills. You need to make sure that people understand you, that you're giving that feedback that they actually need. And yeah, as leaders, I know we're just leaders, but it doesn't mean that we're great communicators. So investing in knowing how to improve those skills is really a key part on how you can be effective as possible.
Yeah, and that's beyond just, everyday communication. It's your ability to get people's buy-in. It's your ability to motivate people and get them to do the tasks that you need them to do. I think sometimes people assume that the charismatic, extroverted type of people make really good leaders, but quiet people can also be really good communicators, and what do you think are some of the things that make up quality communication from a leader?
I definitely think authenticity. I always speak about authenticity. You don't have to be extroverted, charismatic, loud and out there. Even in your introvertedness, as long as you're bringing in your authenticity as a leader, you can be effective in your communication. So making sure that you put your foot down when you need to, making sure that you've got those boundaries in place, and all of those skills that we've spoken about, listening, being able to be transparent, making sure that people are engaged when you are speaking or talking to them, are one of the things that you can practice. Whether you're introverted or extroverted, you can be a great communicator.
Yeah, one of the things that you mentioned that I really thought was wonderful was leaders' ability to be transparent, that people want to know what's going on, where are we going, and that gives a sense of buy-in. But I think that also requires on the part of the leader a need to be vulnerable. And I know a lot of people will go into leadership positions and they say, don't show them your weakness or else they'll tear you apart. Or I've heard women go into leadership positions and people say, don't show them that you're soft. So how do leaders create vulnerability or transparency in the face of this fear around being vulnerable?
So I think vulnerability is a way, I mean, you need to draw the line of where exactly it is, that you're going to be overly, oversharing or too vulnerable. But definitely transparency is all about the greater whole. So we know, when all of the employees actually know what's going on in the organization, everybody is keeping tabs on exactly what it is, if there's any changes, if we're going through a merger. You as a leader need to take that up and be transparent with each and every process that you're going through. And yes, it is that vulnerability, but I think you draw a perfect line between being transparent, which is more effective for the greater whole and the greater team, and you also, making sure that you're not putting too much out there, but also pulling back and keeping within your sense of self as a leader.
That's a good one. And with that, is there such a thing as too much communicating, or over communicating? And I'm thinking about, scenarios where a leader might think, things are falling apart, but we don't want people to panic because we don't want them to think that the ship is sinking or whatever. But for some people, it might be really helpful to communicate that up front. And this takes me back to the start of COVID. And some companies knew that they were going to have to do retrenchments, but didn't mention it up front. How does a leader navigate that space, especially when the company is going through a tumultuous time?
So I definitely think keeping the employees tapped in with all the information that's happening as it is happening. We know that each organization actually has their monthly caucus or whatever meeting that they have, and those are the opportunities where you actually say that this is what we're going through. Also open up for suggestions. You never know. Someone who is in that whole room might actually have the solution to some of the problems that the organization is facing, but how will you know that unless you're being open with your employees about what exactly is going on behind the scenes?
Yeah, and that openness, I think, goes a long way in getting people to feel like you're taking them on the journey with you, and also getting them to take ownership over what's happening in the company. And the quote that I like that says that if you are leading, if you're walking ahead and there's no one following you, then you're not a leader.
You're not a leader.
You're just out on a walk,
That's true.
And one of the points that you mentioned was around empathy. And I think for me, what sets a lot of great leaders apart is their ability to be empathetic and to be servant leaders and to understand their people. How do we get leaders to see beyond themselves, especially for leaders who have just gotten into a position and they're trying to prove themselves, or leaders who are going through a difficult time and are literally just trying to survive, How does one lead with empathy?
So I think the most important thing is to ask yourself those 4 questions that I discussed in my keynote. And one is, what exactly is this person going through? What's their emotional state? What's their well-being at this moment in time? And also, if I was in their shoes, what would I do? Once you've answered some of those questions about being empathetic and making sure that you are actually taking into account the person's feelings and emotions, you'll see yourself becoming more of an empathetic leader. So the number 1 question you need to ask yourself, what would I do if I was in their shoes? And what would I also be able to do to alleviate any pain or distress that someone might be going through? Once you've answered those questions, I think you're on your journey to becoming more empathetic as a leader.
Yeah, I like that. And I think that leads to my next question, which is going to be, what makes communication effective? So if you're looking at X amount of department leaders that you need to talk to, you're looking at, clashing timelines or things that are happening concurrently within the business, and you need to speak and make what you say in that moment count. If you had to narrow it down, what can you say in a moment? How can you communicate that would make you most effective?
I definitely think clarifying tasks and requirements that are needed in order to achieve the company's goals, everyone knowing what it is that is needed at what time, and also embracing feedback. I think feedback is a huge one. Instead of you constantly communicating, you constantly putting out there and delegating, sometimes, take a pause and think about what is it that the employees want? What can we do, to raise up their hands in order to give us feedback and for us to actually move forward and achieve our company goals.
That's so good. And I think that's so helpful for leaders, because oftentimes you, in your mind, know what you want done, but you actually haven't articulated it. You're frustrated with the people around you, but you really just haven't said. The last thing I want to ask you is, you also mentioned body language. And for me, that's a huge thing around how I receive a message from somebody. So for people who go, okay, I heard your tips on body language, but I might not be able to apply all of them. What's the one thing that people definitely should not do? So if somebody had to audit their body language and how they come across, what's one of the worst things you see when someone is trying to communicate, but their body is just saying the absolute opposite thing?
So I think one of the underutilized body language skills is, as leaders, we don't smile often. And you need to smile often. I know we're so serious, we're making big decisions, but smile. Smiling actually makes you more responsive and more open. Smiling says, you can come to me. I know exactly, what you need when you need it. So smile often.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing those insights with us. If you're a leader and you're like, I have to keep a tight face so people don't push me over, smile every once in a while. It makes people feel like you're warm and that your door is open for people to come to you. Stay tuned to HybriCON for more great insights. Hello and welcome back to HybriCON. We're still talking about effective communication skills for every leader. Now, I love going to great conversations, hearing from great leaders, but also having access to resources and tools I can use at home. So the information has landed, but I can go home and practically start applying it. And I know you have a lovely resources that you've developed to allow people to work through their ability to be effective communicators. Can you talk to us a little bit more about that?
Yes, definitely. So I do have a free handbook that I've created, which is effective communication skills every leader needs to master. And in that, I draw up about 7 points on how you can become effective. And it's an awesome handbook that is available on my website. So it's www.madamxandco.co.za. It's available for free. And you can always carry it with you if you need a reminder. It's a handbook that's available as a resource.
I like that, and that's also something I think I would encourage people to do before you go into a meeting. Like if you know you have a big meeting or a big presentation, think through what it is you want to say, practice it if you must, but also be mindful of your body language and your tone in that. And those are things that you can find free resources that can help you to better prepare. Now, I often know that people go, okay, when I become a leader, I'll start doing this, right? When should one start preparing themselves as an effective communicator?
I think as soon as you enter into the business world, even at varsity, even in high school, you should actually start the minute you're able to say mama or dada.
That's the point.
That is the point. But really, I think when you start interacting with more and more people, people now recognize you as a personal brand. How do you stand out? And what do you say when you do have that elevator pitch that you actually need to pitch? People need to know who you are even before you walk into a room. So any time is tea time to actually become an effective communicator.
I like that. And for parents, start encouraging that in your children. I remember when I was in school, I did public speaking, I did debating, even just making announcements at school. It goes a long way, even just for getting over those nerves of speaking in front of people. So if you can start cultivating that skill as soon as possible, do it. Something I wanted to also ask you is, I think people, when there's conflict, struggle the most to communicate effectively. So I think about people who might have a short temper, people who can't communicate without going loud, those different physical things that happen when someone is upset or feels disappointed. What can leaders do to be mindful of how they show up in the middle of a crisis or a disagreement?
So I think what you need to do in the moment of crisis is make sure that you take a step back. So you do not need to react. I actually had it in my keynote. It's the subtle art of not responding. Sometimes you need to take a step back, evaluate the situation, what exactly is going on, what is needed, who can help me, who in the team can I pull in order to help me, in order to resolve this crisis. You do not need to respond then and now. Just take a step back and just look at it from a broader perspective and then evaluate the situation to move forward.
That's such a good point. And I think for a lot of us, we're not comfortable in the silence. So something happens and we feel like if I don't respond immediately, people won't take me seriously, or something's going to happen in the gap. And the truth is, oftentimes if you withhold, that indicates power, that people kind of go, ooh, what is she thinking? How is she processing this? What should we do? And that's something else that you can do that indicates or highlights your authority in a situation. If somebody's preparing for a difficult conversation, so maybe it's a retrenchment, or maybe you are talking to somebody about something that they didn't do. They haven't met their deliverables and they're not playing properly with the team. How does one prepare themselves for difficult conversations?
I think have your facts. Make sure that you've got all of your facts. It shouldn't be an emotional conversation, so no emotions in there. And
That's
make
so
sure.
hard, though.
I know. So have your facts. If you need bullet points as to exactly what this person didn't do or what they didn't deliver on, and make sure that your tone is authoritative and directive as well. You can always open up the floor for them to also state their case, but keep it as neutral as possible and stating the facts that are either on the emails or deadlines that have been missed. It's just the way that you can actually get through that difficult conversation. And we don't like conflict, no one does, but it's things that we need to face, especially as leaders. We find so many situations which then need us to rise up and become the direct leader that's able to deal with conflict in the way that it needs to be dealt with, which is head on.
Can people be equally effective via email or written correspondence as they are when speaking to a person? And I'm thinking about a leader who's, very strategy focused, very systems focused, but isn't a great people person, so they might be more anxious speaking to a person one-on-one. Can they get the same thing accomplished through written communication?
That is a very difficult one. So I believe that the best form of communication literally is us having this direct contact. You can read my tone, you can read my energy. We spoke about body language, and that actually gets missed when you're sending an email. Some of the stuff is email etiquette as well, which is an important thing that we need to know. And I think the best way for you to express yourself is have a one-on-one meeting. Maybe you do not want to express yourself in front of an entire team, but maybe one-on-one with someone, communicate with them, and you can follow up with the email, with your strategy, with your details, with your bullet points, with your amazing way, of writing. But really, the interaction and the one-on-one, and that's something we've lost due to COVID. Now we're, behind our screens. We've got the Zoom. Sometimes videos are off. Switch on your video, smile, embrace the change, and get to actually connect with people as you should.
Fabulous. Thank you so much. Can we get your email address and your website details one more time for people to go and download that free, wonderful handbook?
Awesome. So my website is www.madamxandco.co.za. I hope to see you guys soon. Clicking and getting that free handbook on communication skills that you can master as a leader.
Thank you so much. And
Awesome.
You've heard it from the master yourself. Go ahead and get those resources so that you can improve your effective communication. Up next, we have Nikki Robotham. So stay tuned for more great insights right here on HybriCON.